Today we're going to be using Photoshop Elements to cut this individual out and place him on this desk. And of course we would shrink him down in the process and add a shadow. Alright, so here he is. Now, typically you would cut someone out using one of these selection tools. If you had a background to him, you would probably want to go with the regular selection brush and just start cutting him out. That would take a very long time though. So instead we can actually use the magic wand, considering he has a white background behind them. So instead of selecting him, which is only part of him, we would select the background instead. The tolerance doesn't need to be very high for this, since it's white background. So let's just go 20 on it. Alright, looks like it selected just him. Gotta be careful on the hair and his shoulders here, considering it's kind of white there. Looks pretty good. Okay, now actually what it did is, if I copy this now and try to bring it in this other picture, you can see it did everything but him. So what we need to do is actually go to select, inverse. So right now I've made a selection and I want the opposite, so I go inverse. Now you can see the dancing ants are only around him. That means I have him selected. Alright, so I'm going to, before I hit copy though, let me just show you what it looks like. I'll copy and paste him into this desk. But you'll see that if I zoom in though and look at his legs here, it's got this white outline. It won't look very good if it was like that. So let's go back to our man here. What we want to do is in the select, you can actually go to modify and contract. And what this will do is it'll take pixels off the edge. So you don't want that little bit of glow. So I'm going to say 5 pixels. It's going to contract it. It's going to make it smaller. Alright, there we go. Maybe that was a little too much. Yeah, that was. If I look along his leg, I just want to get rid of that blur on the edge. So let's try that again. Let's just do 4 instead. Alright, there we go. And now let's copy him out. And when I go to this desk here, let me zoom out a little bit, I'll paste him in. Now he's much too large. One thing I do want to point out though is you can see him right here on the back. Here's the layers panel. And we have him and then the background as well. You can turn him on and off and whatnot. Okay, so to resize him, I'm going to grab the corner, and I can, of course, shrink him like this. But if I hold Shift, it's going to maintain his proportions, and that's important. So I'm just going to shrink him down a little bit, and I kind of want him standing on the notepad. You can see the background is blurry, and so is the foreground. I want him right in the center, so he's in focus. Alright, so I'm going to put him right about there. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit larger. Now, I can't do anything else. It still has him selected, so I need to deselect. And if I just grab the selection tool, it'll let him go. Now, one thing I should do. Let's look at his legs again there and see if that looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. There's not much of an edge on it. Looks pretty natural. Looks like he's kind of floating though. I don't know if he's really standing on the on the paper or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, and there's a new layer right here. That's this little like paper looking thing. And I'm going to put that layer under him, but on top of the background, and I'm going to make a shadow. Now I would just normally use a brush, and you could use color. You probably want to use darken. Probably darken. We can do color as well, but I'm going to go darken. And I'm going to turn the opacity down to maybe 30%, right around there. And then I need to turn my brush down as well. Alright, so let's go. Now one way you could do this is go down to like 28 and just kind of blur under them, kind of darken this area up. But you see it's kind of turning like a greenish color. I don't think I want that. So I'm going to go ahead and use the coloring tool. Make the brush a little bigger. I'll try around 50. And I'll just kind of make it, oh, that's why it's turning green. It's not the paper. I have green selected over here. I need to select my color. Of course, I just want black. Alright, there you go. Let me try that now. So you could just have this like little dark area right here, just kind of this shadow that kind of looks, it doesn't look bad. I think a better way to do this is you want to look at the other shadows in the picture. And you see these kind of shadows, they're kind of a hard shadow under the paper as well. So for him, I'm going to go ahead and use a smaller brush and go harder on the opacity, maybe like 50%. And then again, I'm going to use darken instead. And it's going to go right under his shoes, just a real small bit, because that's where the shadow is going to be strongest, just right under his shoes. Maybe just in the front is here as well. And let me get that the way I want. Okay, so it looks pretty good the way it is. And you could leave it like that. That way it looks like it's not floating so much. Or if you wanted, you could kind of make the size of your brush larger now and go real light, maybe like 15%, and kind of connect the two because his body's going to have a little bit of a shadow as well. Probably something like that. That way it doesn't look like he's floating so bad. So it looks pretty good. I will point out in the original picture though, the camera angle is kind of low. It's almost like we're looking up towards his face. And in the desk picture, we're kind of looking down. So what I would do is I'd probably change his proportions a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select him with the selection tool here. And if I go to the corner, I want to kind of make him bigger in a way, but I only want to do part of him. So let's back up here a second. Oop. And I'm going to hold down Control and grab the corner. And I actually want to make him a little wider at the top, so you can kind of change how people look in this program. I'm just going to make him a little bit wider though. Alright, so here's the original size. I'm just going to go a little bit wider towards the top, maybe just a couple pixels. And there we go. That way his top is a little bigger, making it look like we're looking more down on him. So that looks pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied with that. Maybe one other thing I would do is mess around with the contrast and brightness. So if I have his layer selected, I can then go to Enhance, Adjust Lighting, Brightness, and Contrast. And you could play around with this. I would say he's a little too bright for the rest of the picture, so maybe I would turn that down a little bit. You can see if you turn it down, and you can turn him black or white here. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit, maybe like 5. And then the contrast, if you don't understand what contrast is, that's the difference between one color and another, the difference between light and dark. So if you turn on the contrast up, you can see brights get brighter and darks get darker, and the opposite way, brights get duller and darks get duller, I guess you would say, and if you turn it all the way up, it goes gray. I'm going to say it's not bad the way it is. Maybe it's kind of an opinion. If I had a picture of another person in this picture, it would be easier to kind of compare it. So I think that looks good right there. So there you go. That's how you copy and paste someone in, give them a little bit of a shadow, and adjust maybe the size a little bit. Hope it helps.